Mi idea del cine siempre estuvo ligada a la brisa de las noches de verano. Solo veíamos cine en verano.
Movies made me fall in love with Los Angeles. Not necessarily because of the way the city was portrayed, though, at least not at first. Portrayals of Los Angeles in film have always been varied, to the point where, at least as a child who had never been, it's not always obvious that a movie takes place there at all. In fact, ever since the film industry first established itself in Los Angeles over 100 years ago, directors have been trying to disguise the city to make it look like literally anywhere else, be it through unconvincing attempts to make downtown LA pass for New York, or unassuming structures that seamlessly become made-up cities. That is exactly what led to my infatuation. My love for Los Angeles was first born out of a fascination with film and the city that seemed to best represent it. The home to the historic Hollywood studios that have made the bulk of all the movies I've ever seen. So I didn't necessarily fall in love with the lies themselves. They were always attractive, sure, and tween TV shows' obsession with aspirational teenage stars certainly inflicted its fair share of brain damage onto me. However, alongside this fictional education, I was learning more and more about the history of the city. I can't quite pin down what it was. I fell for all of it. The good, the bad, they both lured me into this obsession that guided me through my frankly rough teenage years. I did everything in my power to move to Los Angeles at 18. A few scholarships, loans, and savings later, it was everything I had imagined and more. As I walked from the metro station to my future apartment with all my bags, I fell in love with the city all over again. However, there was something else that soon crept up to me. Something that was present in most of these portrayals of the city, but that I hadn't quite caught on to yet. Something that would quickly become incredibly obvious and, in more than one way, take over my life. Something that, as movies might tell us, is built into the city itself.
I could hear everything together with the hum of my hotel neon. I never felt sadder in my life. LA is the loneliest and most brutal of American cities. New York gets god-awful cold in the winter, but there's a feeling of wacky comradeship somewhere in some streets. LA is a jungle.
For a newcomer into the city, it can be frankly intimidating how much Los Angeles can breed loneliness. Of course, there's the usual loneliness that comes with moving into a new city, in my case, a new country. However, this solitude is very much pervasive beyond that, to the point where you notice it in people who've been living there for years, and even in a lot of locals. People talk about it fairly often directly, but even more so than that, it permeates conversations with subtext. There's the constant acknowledgement that you never see people who live outside of your immediate area, that everyone is always consumed by their job and that they barely have time for a social life, that dating is hell, that it can be, indeed, the loneliest and most brutal of American cities.
I haven't been living some, glamorous life in LA. I'm just a loser.
In the 5 years I lived there, not once did I live with less than 4 or 5 people in the same apartment. And even then the solitude was brutal. Not just for myself, but for the people I lived with. For the friends I hung out with, and for the countless people I went on first dates with. This is why you also see it portrayed that way so often in media, a lot of which is, well, written and produced by people who live there.
Fucking asshole! You motherfucker! Fuck you too! Don't you fucking call me lady! Fuck you too! Who are you? What are you doing out here? Shit. I lost my place. Damn it!
One might even go as far so as to blame the problem on the microcosm of people who work in entertainment, who, due to the nature of their work, are often stuck within that hell known as the industry.
Oh, you're in the entertainment industry. When I said the industry, I meant the auto glass industry. We call our business the industry because we think we're more important than everybody else.
But while I will examine that later, I'm not convinced. It can't simply come from a few aspiring TV writers working as production assistants. So where does it come from? Why is it so often remarked upon? I think that this is an issue that haunts the city somewhere deeper, more secret, and a whole lot harder to get.
The questions began. How did we go wrong? When did we go wrong? Although Los Angeles is a city with no history, nostalgia has always been the dominant note in the city's image of itself. At any time in its history, Los Angeles was always a better place, a long time ago, than in the present. What was new in the 70s was a nostalgia for what might have been, a sense that everything might have been different except for one defining event. We began to look for an originary sin.
These questions about loneliness are nothing new. According to movies, they have been around for a long time. Movies like Chinatown, The Nice Guys, LA Confidential, and, of course, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, attempt to find this original sin that led to the city being this way. There's Chinatown, where a conspiracy to steal water away from nearby valleys in order to supply Los Angeles in 1937 is what marked the point of no return for the city. Who Framed Roger Rabbit posits it was in 1947, with the closure of the trolley and the demolition of a community to build a
freeway. Freeway? What the hell's a freeway?
In LA Confidential, it's police corruption in 1953, and in The Nice Guys, it's in 1977, a conspiracy to protect car makers from environmental regulations. The recurring idea is that at some point, corruption got the better of the city, and there was no going back from there. These are all part of a more cynical subset of American dream-centered movies which attempt to find what went wrong with that particular dream, many of them in Los Angeles.
Ah, we will own you, LA! Watch out, here we come. You will know our names.
Come on, it's LA.
An easy answer to this question would be that the city was corrupted by the arrival of the entertainment industry, which turned it superficial, vapid, greedy, and vain.
If you don't have an eating disorder, get one, bitch.
In the words of Andy Warhol.
I love Los Angeles. I love Hollywood. They're beautiful. Everybody's plastic, but I love plastic. I want to be plastic.
Hollywood was born, and the city of Our Lady, the Queen of the Angels, became Babylon. That's certainly what a lot of people there feel.
See those tar pits? Hollywood's a real pretty town that's smack on top of all that black tar. By the time you realize you're sinking, it's too late.
Hollywood itself seems to believe it, but not without washing its hands in some way or another. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, for example, posits that the industry was better prior to the 70s, that the Manson murders of Sharon Tate and her friends marked a moral turning point for Hollywood and Los Angeles, after which it all went to hell. So in the industry-specific versions of that Originary Sin Anderson spoke of, we see many culprits. Tarantino blames Charles Manson.
I'm the devil, and I'm here to do the devil's business.
No, I was dumber than that.
Hail Caesar suggests it was the Red Scare. Mank proposes the campaign against socialist candidate Upton Sinclair. Corruption, moral or political, condemned the city. This Hollywood self-mythology describes a golden age prior to the taint of that sin. Singing in the Rain was made in 1952, already nostalgic for what they saw as the beginning of a golden age, the arrival of sound, the elevation of the medium. Recently, Babylon exposed that nostalgia as misplaced, as a cruel joke on the real struggles of people at the time, suggesting that the arrival of sound wasn't the beginning, but the end of the dream of Hollywood.
And cut.
La La Land 2 tries to find, in its ending sequence, the point in which things went wrong. Mia and Sebastian get to briefly imagine what might have been, to indulge in the what-ifs and if-onlys of a hypothetical Technicolor life that conforms to our wishes. All before they accept there was no original sin. Things just aren't a Technicolor dream. They never were.
Surely you don't think the 20s are a golden age?
Well, yeah, to me they are.
But I'm from the 20s and I'm telling you the golden age is La Belle Époque.
I mean, and look at these guys. I mean, to them, their golden age was the Renaissance. They'd rather, they'd trade Belle Epoque to be painting alongside Titian and Michelangelo. And those guys probably imagine life was a lot better when Kubla Khan was around.
So this all leads me to feel like it's because of entertainment isn't a particularly satisfying answer. It's a problem that goes much deeper, and one that, indeed, ties back to the American dream. Los Angeles, perhaps more so than any other American city, has modeled itself on dreams. What was originally a modest Mexican ranch of extremely mixed indigenous, black, and European ancestry was forcefully annexed into the United States in 1847. The railroads arrived in 1876. Oil was discovered in 1892. The city expanded. Water was secured in 1913. By then, the city had already attracted the movie industry to the city. Why? Two key factors: the nice weather and the ample space.
You're lucky, Nick. I wish I was going to LA. You can actually have space in LA. There's no space here.
Rail, oil, entertainment. Los Angeles was a nexus for all sorts of American dreams.
I hopped up the plane at LAX with a dream, my cardigan.
Unlike cities like New York or Chicago, Los Angeles was mostly designed and laid out during the 20th century. It was designed with these industries in mind from the get-go.
Los Angeles is a desert community.
In 1908, Los Angeles became the first city in the United States to pass a municipal zoning ordinance, meaning that certain land was designated as residential, while other was specifically for industrial development. This modern approach to urban planning kept the city from growing organically, slowly starting to spread it out. Longer travel times between homes and workplaces, as well as profit incentive to develop the suburbs, called for an extensive trolley network to connect the city.
Hey, mister, ain't you got a car?
Who needs a car in LA? We got the best public transportation system in the world.
When the suburbs were developed enough, it became more profitable to sell cars to everyone than to maintain the trolley, so that was over. Did the city step in to build a comprehensive network of public transit? Longtime viewers of this channel might know that we are looking at a ruthless time in urban planning thanks to my mortal enemy Robert Moses.
You can draw any kind of picture you want on a clean slate and indulge your every whim in the wilderness in laying out a New Delhi, Canberra, or Brasilia. But when you operate in an overbuilt metropolis, you have to hack your way with a meat axe.
That meat axe destroyed entire parts of the city to make way for freeways that further pushed people to live away from their workplace. Now, instead of a trip with fellow colleagues and neighbors, people made their way across the city alone, in their cars, in a rush.
Nobody walks.
Leisurely stroll's a gift.
Yeah, so the joke's on history? I don't know. That's LA. They worship everything and they value nothing.
We're about to roll. Stop these guys.
So it might just be that Los Angeles is lonely by design. Getting anywhere is purposefully difficult, especially if you don't have a car, and this permeates the neighborhoods. Getting groceries, going to a laundromat, or getting a haircut all require a car due to the unwalkability of a lot of areas.
New York is a long way from here.
No, we like it because we can walk.
You can walk here.
Not really.
And the space.
And, of course, movies have come to reflect that. Characters can't go anywhere without a car, tying their independence to their vehicle. There is a permanent distaste for others, to the point where the streets are often to be avoided or disgusting to be in. Corruption and selfishness are everywhere, from the government to your neighbors. In short, community is hard to build. But again, that's not necessarily residents' fault. Culturally, cities with all their concrete and high-rise buildings have come to represent corruption of the natural environment. Dirty, hostile places that border on unnatural. However, in her book, The Death and Life of Great American Cities, Jane Jacobs argues that cities are beacons of community born out of the balance between the natural human need for company and for privacy, stability, and excitement. You may not know your neighbor, but you can count on them.
Cities differ from towns and suburbs in basic ways, and one of these is that cities are, by definition, full of strangers. By its nature, the metropolis provides what otherwise could be given only by traveling, namely the strange.
Los Angeles, the city, was born as a beacon of opportunity without having time to actually become one. The weather, the resources...
Yeah, and the space. Can't beat it.
And yes, all that available space were all a blank canvas for industry, not the people that were necessary for it. It was conceived as a dream, without much room for anything else. That's where the problem began.
Being human is itself difficult, and therefore all kinds of settlements, except dream cities, have problems. Big cities have difficulties in abundance because they have people in abundance.
So many decisions in the urban planning of Los Angeles actively ignore that real people live there.
Where Toontown once stood will be a string of gas stations.
Building freeways right in the middle of neighborhoods, for example, physically destroys the social fabric of these areas. The environment is hostile to the creation of community.
See you later.
We're still a few miles.
A walk. It's a beautiful night. Sorry.
Why do cities do this? Francis Perkins, Franklin Delano Roosevelt's Secretary of Labor, said of the highly influential Robert Moses approach to designing cities,
Robert Moses doesn't love the people. It used to shock me because while he was doing all these things for the welfare of the people, he denounced the common people terribly. To him, they were lousy, dirty people, throwing bottles all over Jones Beach. I'll get them. I'll teach them. He loves the public, but not as people. The public is just the public. It's a great amorphous mass to him. It needs to be bathed. It needs to be aired. It needs recreation, but not for personal reasons, just to make it a better public.
So Donna just put in these new cabinets. Real nice, stained the wood and all. When she gets a call from somebody at PG&E saying there's a freeway going to be built and they want to buy her house to put in an off-ramp to the plant.
Erin Brockovich, which is based on a real story, follows the titular character discovering that because of corporations' cost-cutting measures, an entire town just north of Los Angeles is suffering the effects of toxic chromium exposure. And this is one of many movies that center on some residents' goodness trying to fight unrelenting darkness conspiring against it. In them, the city itself is an obstacle to be overcome, a problem to be fixed, a place to escape.
Or one more dream that I cannot make true.
The city hence becomes a place for outsiders to scoff at, to dismiss as a giant strip mall full of vapid people and car smog. I went to LA and I hated it. Hollywood is so gross and full of homeless people, etc., etc.
Beautiful, ain't it?
If you like that sort of thing.
I do.
And even doubling down on that, a lot of people who actually live there might see this loneliness as a point in the city's favor, as the reason they moved there in the first place. These are the kind of people who see the whole city as a networking event, not as a living, breathing being.
What's great about Los Angeles is nobody cares about where you're from or who you are. It's a superficial town where you can worry about stupid shit like keeping your pool clean and what artisanal nuts to put on your salad.
I do like salad.
Oh, it's the best! Why do you think people keep moving there?
This problem has been around for quite a while too. I said Babylon exposed Singing in the Rain's nostalgia as a mirage, but it certainly wasn't the first movie to do so. In fact, it was done before Singing in the Rain even existed.
She's on the phone right now, sir.
Thanks, Abby. Who?
Gloria Swanson.
What? Gloria?
In Sunset Boulevard, Joe Gillis is a screenwriter who has fallen into hard times. We meet him just as the bank informs him that he's defaulted on his car payments and they intend to repossess the vehicle. An unimaginable threat.
If I lose my car, it's like having my legs cut off.
Greatest thing that could happen to you. Now you'll have to sit behind the typewriter. Now you'll have to write.
And so, he takes the car and runs, finally hiding it in the garage of a decrepit mansion that has also seen much better days. Joe discovers this is the home of Norma Desmond, an old silent film star who has spent the decades since the advent of sound withering away in her lonely palace.
You're Norma Desmond. Used to be in silent pictures, used to be big.
I am big. It's the pictures that got small.
There it is again. It has always been better a long time ago than in the present. Joe decides to accept Norma Desmond's offer to stay in her house and advise her on the screenplay she's been writing. Although, for some reason, he keeps complaining about it. I mean, he keeps talking about how old and delusional she is for falling in love with him, but Gloria Swanson, she was barely 50 at the time. That's younger than Cate Blanchett, Nicole Kidman, Salma Hayek, Viola Davis, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus, none of whom are kidnapping writers to keep us sugar babies, unfortunately. Part of the reason why Joe stays is that he has grown disillusioned with Hollywood, for he believes his work isn't valued anymore. However, in truth, he's clearly lazy, talentless, self-important, and devoid of passion or drive. Contrast him with Norma Desmond, who Joe sees as talentless and self-important in her own right. However, unlike Joe, Norma was talented. She was, and still is, big. The problem is that she stopped being profitable for the system. Her fall from grace has been slow and steady, just like the decline of her once gilded mansion. A woman once treasured is locked away to wallow in her own stench as the city that held her up moves forward without her. The story is about the sunset, not just on the street signs, but on the horizon for an entire city as it begins to reckon with the price of crafting itself out of a dream. You create some ideal world and then throw it away in favor of a new one, and repeat the process all over again some years later until you can't help but be both nostalgic for what you trashed and unwilling to go through the rubble you left behind.
Yeah, but it's a nice memory, right?
It was a fun night. We had a lot of fun nights.
Before you left town, you told me L.A. was a tar pit. Do you remember that?
Oh, God, I said so many things when I was young. I thought I was so deep.
Well, do you still think it's true?
Do I think L.A. is a tar pit? No. No, I think you're the tar pit.
Me?
After living there for a few years, I too began to feel that this idea of the tar pit, as well as other misconceptions people have about Los Angeles, were often unfair portraits of the city. Throughout 5 years living there, I did 95% of my moving around in public transit, and sure, everything took twice as long, presumably because of all that space.
You heard what Amir said about the space.
Fuck the space, Bert! Fuck the space!
But not only was taking the bus and the rail lines fun, I got to interact with the city a lot more. My fellow passengers on the subway, on the light rail, and on the bus would tint my commute with plenty of unpredictable interactions. I could enjoy the view as I made my way through the city instead of focusing on the road ahead. These soon revealed a layer that had previously been kept from me. The dawning realization that Los Angeles is, indeed, a real city with real people living real lives, not just a mecca for aspiring entertainers. When you start seeing the city as more than just a career opportunity, it opens up to you.
Yeah, the street level isn't so exciting, but like, if you look up...
I took it upon me to talk to more than just transplants, which can be surprisingly hard when you spend so much time in film school. But I did my best. It became necessary for me to interact with people who didn't see me as a person in the industry, but as a person. The people who think that Los Angeles is superficial and vapid do so because they're unwilling to put in the work to become a part of the community. They don't bring anything, they only take, and that's no way to live in a city.
Cities have the capability of providing something for everybody, only because and only when they are created by everybody.
Well, okay, like that building, that's been there since 1911. And that's the Continental. That's LA's first skyscraper. It's built in 1904.
What is that?
That's a parking lot.
Oh.
Yeah. That's also a parking lot. It's yeah. There's a lot of beautiful stuff here too, though. I don't know. Just wish people would notice it more.
The disregard for all the community and life underneath the picture-perfect image of Los Angeles manifests in the way that the city is designed. The people are secondary to industry. A freeway can cut through a community because that's what's good for the city, but what about its inhabitants? The city, not as in concrete, but as in people. It only takes a look at local news to see what Los Angeles city officials actually think of its people, and who they decide actually matters. It keeps up the Moses approach.
I raise my stein to the builder who can remove ghettos without removing people, as I hail the chef who can make omelets without breaking eggs.
It's important, then, to pay attention to what cities are actually for. They're not a path towards a writing gig or an acting big break, nor are they an excuse to make money off of cars, parking spots, and parking tickets.
Oh, come on!
They are the natural result of our innate desire for human interaction and community. And where do we actually find community in Los Angeles? Where is the love? I came to realize that it's outside a lot of the filmmakers' bubbles.
¿Tú sabes dónde están los gringos? Mira la calle nomás, igualita que el México que le dicen.
Ay Dios, ¿y tú no crees que los gringos van a querer vivir con los mexicanos, verdad? Oye, ellos viven allá en sus colonias.
But you can still see it in the work made by Los Angeles locals themselves. There's the flawed but vibrant scene of Inglewood that thrives in spite of being ignored by city leadership that you see in Issa Rae's Insecure and Rick Famuyiwa's Dope, both Inglewood natives. The complicated but crowded daily lives of Chicana women in Real Women Have Curves and Mi Vida Loca, both either written or inspired by actual Echo Park locals. Notice that these don't idealize the city, but rather they find the love that so many people ignore when they dismiss an entire city for surface-level factors.
Forget it, Max. We moved to sunny L.A. All of show business is out there, Max.
No, I cannot. You keep bringing it up, but I don't want to live in a city where the only cultural advantage is that you can make a right turn on a red light.
All right, Max.
You can't hate it without taking the time to know it.
Yeah, dude, I mean, sorry, but I'll hate what I want.
Do you love it?
Yeah, I'm here. But do I have to love it?
You don't get to hate it unless you love it.
That's the beautiful city I miss dearly after having to move back to my hometown. The one I got to participate in and grow with as I spent the most formative years of my life in it. The city you have to make an effort to walk around in, and where the buses take forever and 9 out of 10 dates suck, and where parking lots take up way too much space. Where connection might be hard to find, but God, when you do.
I made love to her in the sweetness of the weary morning. Then, 2 tired angels of some kind hung up forlornly in an LA shelf, having found the closest and most delicious thing in life together.
Where kind, normal people are so desperate for a functioning city that they have taken it upon themselves to make it so. And it's wonderful to see that the present of Los Angeles is worth celebrating. But what about its future? Is it doomed to become the Los Angeles of Blade Runner and the Terminator? A city where industry and capital always come before people? It might unfortunately be that LA is destined to become a high-density expanse of buildings crowded with lonely people who can't even tell the difference between a human and a machine. How bad is that, though?
We ask you a simple question. Who are you? What can you be? Where are you going? What's out there? What are the possibilities?
Spike Jonze's Her follows Theodore, a lonely divorcee who has trouble moving on from his ex-wife. In fact, he hardly seems to be trying to. He finds solace in Samantha, a new artificial intelligence device with a personality of its own that becomes his one true companion.
Thank you, Theodore. I'm kissing your head.
It certainly feels dystopian, given the prospect of avoiding genuine connection to the point of connecting with servicing, easily malleable pieces of technology. However, Her does not look dystopian at all. Its world actually feels very attractive in a lot of ways. The bright pastel colors, the subtle fashion advancements, the pretty shots of the city as Theodore makes its way around it in his date with Samantha. They all make it look fun, beautiful, inviting, homely. In fact, Her offers one of my favorite portrayals of Los Angeles, a pastel future vision of the city that feels like a shadow self of the one we see in Blade Runner. They're really not that different. In both of them, future Los Angeles is full of high-density, high-rise buildings, each borrowing aesthetically from famously densely populated Asian cities, Tokyo and Shanghai, respectively. Not to mention that they are both about the loss of humanity to technology, positing questions of whether or not artificial life is life at all, and whether we can establish genuine connection with them. And while Her isn't a particularly happy movie, and the relationship with technology in it is quite dire and even dystopian, I don't actually think it's a pessimistic look on the future, despite the principal relationship implying that throughout. The ending is certainly not pessimistic, but it didn't take for me to get to the ending to see its ultimately optimistic overtones. There were plenty of clues throughout in the production design, specifically the urban design. You want to know what it was specifically that gave it away for me upon a recent rewatch? It was this: an incredibly optimistic map of Los Angeles light rail. In Her, Los Angeles is no longer a car-infested series of freeways connecting strip malls. It is walkable, with good public transit, a vibrant street life, and high-density housing where friends live a few doors down from each other, sparking conversations on the elevator and providing comfort for late-night heartbreak. I doubt this is unintended, since the city is such a big presence in many of the movie's key scenes, with a lot of emphasis on the environments and how the characters interact with them. We are treated to shots of the city as Samantha speaks, a dense landscape of people living in close proximity to each other, but without any connection between them. Theodore goes home through an elevator framed by shadows of a nature that isn't there. That is all these characters are enveloped by throughout the film. Shadows of connection with artificial intelligence, of video game characters, of the strangers Theodore writes love letters for and to, of real public places that don't quite look like that in real life. Real Los Angeles locations, complemented by Shanghai, look dense, enhanced, populated, given new life by speculative fiction that looks for possibility, not what is actually there. Public space that, in reality, tends to be empty or sparsely populated by tourists is, in Her, crowded with presumably locals enjoying an evening out. Public transit is not seen as dirty or depressing, but as bright and jovial. Recognizable buildings that, due to their function, tend to be empty throughout most of the day, have people coming in and out of them, hinting at mixed use. Which is not to say that the community issues of Los Angeles are fixed. After all, the main character, as well as everyone around him, is deeply lonely, which is what leads them to fill the gaps with operating systems. The city itself can't do all the work.
We expect too much of new buildings and too little of ourselves.
But by the end, the movie refuses to concede to this perpetual solitude. In fact, it goes all over this unusual romance to decide that the most undeniable truth out there is that humans need fellow humans.
Sometimes I look at people and I make myself try and feel them as more than just a random person walking by. I imagine like how deeply they've fallen in love or how much heartbreak they've all been through.
For over a century, movies have continuously dreamed up Los Angeles, sometimes realistically, sometimes fantastically, often nostalgically, and just as often cynically. In bold resistance, Her dares to dream of a future that Los Angeles can sincerely look forward to, a better version of itself that didn't happen decades ago, but that is waiting for it. Her finds the loneliness inherent in the city and heals it with the futuristic prospect Not of technology or advancement or progress, but of community, of each other. Hi everyone, it's me, Jose Maria. I don't usually do this, and it's weird to me to do like unscripted stuff, but I tried to script it and it sounded very stiff. I've never done a call to action or like an addressing of my audience of any kind. I feel weird about that. Between my last video and this one, I was able to become a YouTube partner, which is insane to me. I did not think that these silly little videos that I started making as a creative outlet would find any sort of audience. So that's just cool. I don't know. It's not like it's huge, but it is more than I ever imagined. So thank you everyone who has subscribed or watched or anything so far. I work 3 jobs, so I'm not particularly able to do this as much as I would like to. Thank you. Thank you for the support. I hope you like this video, even though I can't imagine anyone caring about the topic. I hopefully I can get another one out soon. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you all later.